The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsynder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by Eric Knopsynder, and we are in episode 31, Eric.
We are getting closer and closer to the season. Going to take a look at some of the happenings in the offseason here. A lot of commitments that have been flying around recently, and also some of the top recruits looking ahead to the 2019 class.
Yeah, it's never too early to look ahead, Eric. You know, that's one thing. I always like to look ahead, as you would notice, because I do top 75 for top incoming freshmen. So that's looking way ahead. But yeah, we're really excited for inching closer to the season. We'll be going down to Super 32 here in a little bit. But it seems like recently there was a ton of commitments that just came pouring in. I think it was over the weekend where I sat down and in one day there was like 10 of the top 100 or top 150 recruits in the state all gave commitments. So it all sort of happened really fast. But leading that group, number 2, Sammy Sasso, who committed to Ohio State.
Yes, big news there, making national headlines. Everybody's kind of been waiting on Sammy. I think it was down to about 3 schools with Nebraska and Virginia Tech also in the mix. But the Big Ten Power Buckeyes get another Pennsylvania guy and just kind of reloading to keep up their battle with Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top 5 recruits. You got from Pennsylvania's class of 2018, Gavin Teasdale is number 1. He's going to Penn State. But then number 2 and number 3, Sammy Sasso and Gavin Hoffman, are each going to Ohio State. And then 4, Michael Beard is going to Penn State. And 5, Trent Hidley is still undecided. So Penn State and Ohio State got 2 each in the top 5. And Sammy, you know, I think Ohio State fits him well. I'm not surprised by the fact that he chose Ohio State. I think he's going to do well there, especially with the coaches and the fellow wrestlers there. So really excited. And we're actually going to have Sammy on the podcast here in a little bit. We're going to be able to pick his brain a little bit about how that decision came to be and, you know, what it's like and how he feels.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking forward to hearing from him. As you said, I think that's a good fit for him. Just a tremendous program that Tom Ryan has going out there right now, and the assistants, the RTC. I mean, everything going well for them, and they look like they're going to be a national power for years to come.
You know, and his arch nemesis from high school, Luke Pletcher, is going to be by his side there. So, you know, that's pretty cool. I mean, because those two had some barn burner matches. I mean, you know, Luke and Sammy wrestled in the King of Mountain finals. That was a crazy match. And then they wrestled in the quarterfinals of states, which was essentially the state finals in the quarterfinals. But, you know, those two, I think, just they're so much fun to watch. I can't imagine how they're going to be in the wrestling room together. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. But Sammy was not the only one to give a commitment. There was a ton of wrestlers. We have a list as very, very long of all the wrestlers that have recently gave commitments. And the second one that we're going to talk about is number 25, Tyler Griffiths from Southmoreland. And he's going to be going to Seton Hill. That's a big pickup there for Coach Brian Tucker.
That is a very big pickup. Tyler Griffiths has done a great job at Southmoreland, staying close to home there with Seton Hill. And as you said, that's a phenomenal signing for them. I think that, you know, that gives some momentum to Seton Hill as far as their recruiting goes as we're heading into the season to get a pickup like Tyler Griffiths.
I think it has to. I mean, he was a state runner-up last year, you know, multiple-time state medalist. And like you say, he's staying close to home. I think that has to give momentum to Coach Tucker and Seton Hill program to grab such a high-ranking recruit. I mean, he was number 25 in our top 200 or top 300 of the class of 2018. So that's a big pickup for Coach Tucker. And, you know, it's kind of ironic because the Seton Hill, they're the Griffins You're right. Their mascot is a griffin. What is a griffin, Eric?
Is it some kind of like mythological bird type thing?
It's a bird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. It's something like that.
You're putting me on the spot here. I'm not sure. I think that's what it. Something like that.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I mean, you're a lot smarter than I am, Eric. Or at least
a legendary creature with a body, tail, and back legs of a lion, head and wings of an eagle, and an eagle's talons as its front feet.
So it's just a casserole of different animals?
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like a liger from Napoleon Dynamite.
Okay, well, regardless, Tyler Griffiths is going to be a griffin, so that's kind of cool. I thought it was, Eric, but I mean, mythological creatures are cool to me, I guess.
The mythological Tyler Griffiths.
Yeah, he's real mythological. That's great. Well, congratulations to Tyler. I'm looking forward to seeing him his senior year. Like I said, he's been one of the top names in the state for a while now. Another guy who is no longer in Pennsylvania, but we're still allowed to claim him for sure, is Francis Dugan, who's now at Iowa City West. He's going to be heading to Iowa State. What do you think about that one, Eric?
That's kind of interesting. I would have thought Iowa would have had the lead on him, but I guess he wanted to go a little different direction and go to Iowa State.
Yeah, his older brother Patrick, is now at Iowa. Patrick is in his third college. He's started at West Virginia, went to Lock Haven. Now he's at Iowa. And Francis, he moved there to Iowa. He's at Iowa City West, where he's competing, or he's going to compete there. But he committed to Iowa State, which they're getting some big name commitments. They've got David Carr, who has some Pennsylvania connections through his father and brother. Iowa State, Kevin Dressler, man, they're picking up some big name recruits.
Yeah, I think Coach Dressler is going to get that Iowa State program back to the lofty perch that they were used to for a long time. And I think he's going to do it pretty quickly with that staff that he has.
It certainly seems like he is. But I was surprised as well, Eric, considering the fact that, Francis chose Iowa State over Iowa, considering the fact that, Patrick is there at Iowa. So, but very good, for Francis. He comes in as a number 31 ranked senior in the state of Pennsylvania. Number 33, Chris Wright from Central Dauphin. Three-time state medalist from CD. He's going to be going to Ryder. Number 36, Chase Anklin from Penn Argyll. He's going to Army. That was a big-time pickup for them. Chase is a guy who's been very consistent over his career out in District 11, and I think he's going to do well at Army. And they just keep on rolling in. Caleb Hedrick from Brookville. That Brookville-Clarion connection, that is a strong connection there, because I'll tell you what, it seems like every solid Brookville wrestler ends up at Clarion. You got Brock Zackrell there now. Caleb Hedrick, who's number 37 ranked senior in the state, he announced that he'll be going to Clarion.
Well, that's a pretty good place. As far as AA schools go, Brookville, definitely one of the top programs, and if you can tap into that and consistently get those guys, that's going to be a good base for your program.
Joining him at Clarion is going to be Seth Colino from Baltimore area. Seth's a multiple-time PA state medalist. He comes in as number 43 ranked senior in the state, and he'll be going to Clarion along with Caleb Hedrick. So that's, again, several notable names heading out to Clarion.
Yeah, and then we've got Jason Montgomery from Bethel Park, number 45, committed to Penn. That's a nice signing there for Penn, and able to tap into the West a little bit and bring somebody across the state.
Yeah, Montgomery's a guy who's only gotten significantly better over the last 2 years, I would say. I would say definitely a guy who's improved the most across the state. He came away with a state medal this last year, and I think he's only going to get better and continue to get better. So I'm really interested to see how he is able to progress in his career.
And then we got a couple commits to American. Number 51, Blake Barrick of Big Spring, and number 60, Ben Root of Solanco. You and I, when we talked to Coach Moore at before the Fargo at the Fargo camp, we came away from it saying, "Man, this guy, who wouldn't want to wrestle for him?" So you can see that as he's getting a couple more Pennsylvania guys there.
Yeah, and Blake Barrick, his obviously the name like Barrick, it rings true that, you're probably going to be pretty good at wrestling. But Blake is a guy who's highly touted. He's been he was a really good youth wrestler, continued on through high school, and he's a guy who I think is, again, kind of like Jason Montgomery, is only going to continue. He has not reached his peak yet. He's only going to continue to get better. And I think being in a place like American for him is a huge pickup. And Ben Root, same way. Ben Root, as a guy from Solanco, maybe a little bit, not the household name, as you would say, but still a very accomplished wrestler. And, we saw him out at the Fargo camp, and I'm sure being around Teague Moore like that has played a big part in him going down to American.
Yeah, and like I said, after talking with Coach Moore, I can certainly see how he'd be a great recruiter and, somebody that you definitely want to wrestle for.
At number 65, Dalton Rohrball from Spring Grove. He's going to Lock Haven. I believe we may have mentioned him before, but if in case we missed him, Dalton's going to be going to Lock Haven. In fact, he's a guy who he just won the Lock Haven Fall Classic, so that was pretty cool to see him go up there to Lock Haven, where he'll be spending the next couple years competing. So he's going to Lock Haven. And Eric, another one that came in somewhat recently was Jason Jones of Saucon Valley. And he's going to be heading out to Keystone College, which, if you remember, is the program that got resurrected. It was away for a number of years, a decade at least, but it is a program that now is back, and they'll be competing in Division III. But Jason Jones, a three-time state qualifier from Saucon Valley, is going to be heading to Keystone College, which is led by District 11 legend Steve Middich, who competed for Northampton and Drexel.
Yeah, and this is a really nice recruit, for a school like Keystone, as you said, Division III, kind of building its base back up. To get a guy like Jason Jones, number 68 in the state, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's, I think, a big pickup for them. And obviously it's a program that's going to continue to build. And, that's guys are going to notice that, and they're going to see, oh, well, Jason Jones is going there, and maybe I should look into it. So I think it's very cool that Jason Jones is going to be heading to Keystone. Number 79, Brandon Meredith from Springford. He's going to be going to Penn State, project as a 125-pounder. And Brandon's a guy, he was a state medalist, not last year, but the year prior, and finished fourth at 106 pounds, and he's a guy that I think has a good upside, so it'd be interesting to see how he develops into college. And coming in at number 90, Ryan McGuire from Notre Dame Green Pond. He recently gave a commitment to Millersville, and Ryan's a guy who's just earned his first state medal last year. I think he's going to be joining a program that looks to trying to get back to their promise that they once were.
Yeah, and again, if you can bring in a top 100 guy in Pennsylvania, that's a pretty solid recruit and can do a lot of things for your program and, kind of build that back up.
At 106, number 106 in the state, Hunter Michaels from Reynolds. So the Reynolds connection to Clarion is strong as well. You got the Brookville and Reynolds guys going into Clarion, but Hunter Michaels is going to Clarion. So several solid pickups for Coach Keith Ferrero and Clarion.
Yeah, as I said before, Brookville, a double-A power, and Reynolds obviously right there at the top of double-A. So if you can tap into those are two pretty good programs to find quality wrestlers from.
And these commitments keep on pouring in. There's one notable one on the list here that is still unsigned, and that is or uncommitted, should I say, and that is Trent Hidley from Mifflin County, number 5 in the state ranked recruit, and I think we're probably going to have a decision from him in the upcoming weeks here.
Yeah, I talked to him at Who's Number One, and I asked him at the time, what the timeline was looking like, and he said after Super 32. So I don't know. I didn't ask if that means immediately after, or if a week later, or how long. But I think it will be coming soon.
Yeah, and he's, like I said, just not only in the state of Pennsylvania, but he's a highly touted recruit in the nation. A lot of schools are trying to land Trent. And, I think a lot of people that I've talked to said, well, isn't it obvious it's NC State, right, with Hayden there? And, I wouldn't say that's a lock for NC State to land in.
I don't think it is.
I mean, I know is very, very high on Trent Hiley, and some other programs as well.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't have any inside information, but I don't know if I would even put NC State as the favorite. I think Trent's kind of his own guy, and as much as close he is to his brother, I'm not sure that that's a lock that he's going to go to NC State.
Yeah, I could agree with you there, and I think wherever he does go, he's going to do well, and I don't think he necessarily has to follow Hayden to where he's going, but I just think a lot of people assume naturally that a brother's going to stay where their older brother's going.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, but I'm hoping to, just to kind of being greedy, I want to find out where he's going. I've been, kind of tracking this for about a year now, talking to him, going back to Super 32 last year, and so kind of anxious to see how it all shakes out and what his decision is.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that Trent wants to get that Super 32 belt before he makes his decision. He just got a nice win at Who's Number One. He needs to get that Super 32 belt to really solidify himself as one of the best in the state. Would you agree?
I think he already is definitely in that category. Yeah. But yeah, this certainly helps your credentials if you can get a Super 32 belt.
No, and I'm not saying he's not established. I'm just please, Trent, don't come and hurt me, please. I don't want you to beat my face in and then eat a hoagie over me.
Yeah, he's gonna beat it in with a hoagie.
He probably could. I don't want that to happen to me. But I think what I'm saying is it would be a nice. He's won a Pennsylvania State championship. Wouldn't it be really nice for him to get that Super 32 championship as well?
Absolutely. All
right. So you think I'm safe?
I think you are.
All right. I hope so. So looking at some other names on the list here that are still have yet to give commitments. Number 13, Josiah Jones from Bishop McCourt, two-time state runner-up. And I believe you had mentioned, Eric, that he may have gotten injured during a football game.
He did. It looked pretty scary when it happened initially. And there was a lot of fear that this could be. Josiah's had some knee issues already. He's had major surgeries on each of his knees in his high school career. And there was a lot of fear that this was, potentially another season-ending injury. But I just talked to Shad Benton today, and he said that no, it looks like it wasn't too bad. He just the way he described it, he stretched the MCL, and that this should be something that with a little bit of rest, he should be okay and back at it for the season without an issue. So he won't be going to Super 32, obviously, as it just happened, but it does look like he's going to be okay for the season.
Well, I'm at least glad to hear that it's not as serious as it was like his freshman year when, he had to miss the postseason for that.
Right. And he actually missed the beginning of his freshman year from the other knee. He had surgery on it and was out until January, I believe, and then came back and got hurt again that season on the other knee. So it's been a rough road for him, but very athletic. Kid, and I know he's supposed to have, I think, a visit coming up to Oklahoma here shortly. So he's probably going to be making a decision soon as well.
Well, that's great to hear, and I know a lot of Division I coaches are looking at Josiah Jones and what he's been able to accomplish. A guy who I'm pretty high on is number 15, Creighton Edsel from Wyalusing Valley. This is a guy who quietly won his first state championship last year, finishing 37-1 on the season. He was fifth the year prior, and this is a guy I think is under the radar. He doesn't get the hype and the maybe the ink he deserves in comparison to some of the other guys on the list. But Creighton Edsel is a guy who I think he's a very strong, hard-nosed wrestler, and I think he's going to provide some skill wherever he ends up.
Have you heard anything on him as far as what he's looking at, or has that kind of been under the radar as well as to where he's looking at?
I think, at least right now from what I know, I think it's under the radar a little bit. So it's, waiting to see where maybe I can't even tell you where he was looking at. So, but I'm assuming that he's getting some pretty good looks. I mean, you don't become a Pennsylvania State champion and not have some pretty serious offers.
Right. Anytime you can bring in home a PIAA championship, you're gonna get some notice from college coaches.
even if it's in Double-A. That still counts too.
Ouch! Come on now. Where's Mason Beckman? We're coming after you.
I'm channeling my inner Tristan Warner.
My Double-A guy Mason and I, we got to stick together.
Yeah. Go ahead. I got Tristan. I got even though I hate Cumberland Valley, right? Being from CD. It is what it is, Eric. So, and some other guys on the list that are still have not signed, Ian Edenfield from Laurel Highlands, the one-man roadshow here. Ian is, Laurel Highlands does not have a wrestling program anymore, but Ian, all he did was become a state finalist last year. And I actually talked to one of his coaches last week and asking about, he's playing football right now, and he's a pretty good football player, as you could assume. But Ian's, I know some schools are interested in Ian, and a guy who is under the radar, but he's going to be heading out to Ironman. So I'm really excited to see how he does on the national level, competing against the biggest names in wrestling.
Yeah, what an opportunity for him. As you said, a guy that, because he doesn't have a team really, doesn't get that much attention. But that's awesome that he got an invite to Ironman and is going to be able to go out there and show how he stacks up against that incredible field that they have every year.
It's going to be a great tournament once again, and I'm excited to see how everything pans out for especially for some of our Pennsylvania wrestlers that are going to be going there. But that was a whole lot of commitments that just came pouring in over the last week or two. So it's tough to keep up with everything, but we try our best. So if we missed any, I apologize, and please give us a message at PA Power Wrestle on Twitter, or go on PAPowerWrestling.com. You can actually submit something on there that says that you've committed to a college. So, and it's interesting because, as most of the listeners know, that we have recruiting profiles on the website. So a lot of wrestlers that are looking to wrestle in college have created recruiting profiles on the website. And some of these wrestlers are ones that recently gave commitments. And I think if you're a wrestler who's serious about wrestling in college at any level, it doesn't need to be Division I or Division II, Division III. It doesn't matter. NIIA, it doesn't matter if you're interested in wrestling in college and you want to get your name out there. We are fortunate enough to have a good working relationship with a lot of different coaches in the entire United States, and we're going to get your name out there to some coaches. So if you are interested and you want to, go on PAPowerWrestling.com, click on create a recruiting profile, and I think it's definitely going to pay dividends for you. So definitely something to check out.
Yeah, I think last year that point was really driven home for me when we went to Greensboro for the Super 32, and we talked to all of these coaches from all across the country, and they just loved the stuff that we were doing and being able to look at these kids and get information on them. And so I think that is really helpful for the coaches and really helpful for the kids to be able to get noticed like that and to have their information out there for college coaches.
Yeah, I mean, today's society, I mean, it's easy to get lost in the crowd. I mean, I understand that. And, this isn't, and I never want to say that, this isn't for, we do top 300 recruits for a reason, because I truly believe that all 300 of those wrestlers can go compete in college anywhere they wanted to, and beyond those 300. So this doesn't have to be the biggest names in wrestling. This can be anybody. And that's really what we're trying to, if you are interested in wrestling college, there's no reason that you should not be able to wrestle in college. That there's plenty of programs out there. So please, if you're interested, go on PAPowerWrestling.com and check out recruiting profiles. And Eric, we just got done finishing up going through all of these wrestlers that have given commitments to Division I schools, Division II, Division III schools, which is great. And we're going to talk to one guy who recently gave a huge commitment to the Ohio State Buckeyes, and that's the second-ranked wrestler in the state of Pennsylvania, the class of 2018. That's Sammy Sasso from Nazareth, a state champion last year. He won everything last year, Ironman, you name it, he won it. I think this is a huge pickup for Ohio State and Coach Tom Ryan. So we're going to bring on Sammy Sasso to talk a little bit about his decision. Joining us now is Sammy Sasso, the Pennsylvania state champion from Nazareth, who just gave a commitment recently to Ohio State. Sammy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Very good, Sammy. And, this has got to be an exciting time for you. Going into your senior season, you got your commitment out of the way. Talk to us a little bit about Ohio State and really what set the Buckeyes apart from the rest of the schools that were courting you.
It was a really tough decision. It came down between Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and Nebraska. And, I liked all the coaches. I got along with the kids on the team. But I think what set it apart was just my gut feeling that I could do my best at Ohio State. I thought that was the best fit for me, and I just went with that.
And Sam, you touched on some of the other schools that you made visits to and were able to go talk to their coaches. Talk about Tom Ryan and what he's what influenced you and really his whole coaching staff there with Tervel and all of them. What really brought you and drew you to those guys there.
I think Tom Ryan has a bit of a Coach Kroll mentality, which I liked a lot. The assistant coaches, I thought my style, working with Jay Jaggers would be a great fit. And Tervel, his technique is unbelievable, even for a heavyweight. So the coaching staff and, they really made me feel like I was their guy, and I felt like that was the best fit.
Sammy, Ohio State was really kind of the leader from the beginning, weren't they? I know it was a tough decision for you, but it seemed like they were really early on kind of the favorites.
I don't know if they were a favorite the whole time. I think I was really stuck making my decision, but after the coaches visiting me and really getting to know them, and I just sat down and I thought about it for a while, pros and cons. Even though there wasn't many cons of any of the schools, I think there were just more pros at Ohio State, and that's what led me to my decision.
And Sammy, how difficult is it to make that decision? I mean, young kids like you have some very difficult decisions to make in choosing a college and choosing a place that you're going to spend some time at. What was the most difficult part about that whole process for you?
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, what was the most difficult part of the recruiting process for you? Was it saying having to tell those coaches that you were going to Ohio State as opposed to their school?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the toughest parts of it, because you build a relationship with the coaches, and only one guy can get a yes. But I think the toughest part was making sure that I was at the school that fit me best, and I'm confident in my decision that Ohio State is it.
Sammy, Ohio State building a nice little pipeline to Pennsylvania too. Luke Pletcher, Gavin Hoffman. Just talk about the Pennsylvania guys that are going to be there with you and what you guys hope to be able to accomplish there.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Getting some PA guys in there. I'm excited. Hoffman's a buddy of mine. We wrestled in Utah when we were back in the 6th grade. I've known him for a long time, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there as a PA boy and go wrestle.
And it's interesting, Sammy, because you and Luke have a lot of history together. You, two of your best matches, I think, ever wrestled were against Luke in the King of Mountain finals, and then, of course, in the state semis, the quarters. What you talk about Luke, and is this something that you're looking forward to? Is rolling around with a guy like him, and just sparring with him every day is just gonna. I mean, I think that's gonna be a heck of a time for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get out there and just train with all those guys that they got. Stieber, Jaggers, Joey McKenna, just everyone. I'm really excited to get out there and train with them. And me and Pletcher, we go way back. I remember doing a shoe deal on Flickr with them. So I'm excited.
And Sammy, just now that it's been a few days since you made your commitment, do you feel like a relief, a weight's off your shoulder a little bit? Do you feel a little bit just like that decision's out of its way? Now I can focus on my senior season?
Yeah, definitely. It's a process that not everybody gets to go through. So I was happy, and you gotta take all that in. But at the same time, you need to be able to focus on wrestling in the midst of all that. So now that it's over and done with, and I can just solely focus on wrestling, it feels good.
Now, Sammy, we're getting ready to go down to Super 32, a place that you were at last year and came away with a Super 32 belt. You're not going down this year, but do you feel like you're ready for the season? Do you feel you coming off that Who's Number One victory, which by the way was incredible to do in front of your hometown like that? But what do you do? What do you go from here to start your senior season?
I think me wrestling in the Super 32 last year with Who's Number One. I wanted this break after Who's Number One. I trained hard for that, and I just wanted that little break before the season. Not break, and I'm not wrestling at all, still training, but from competing, I think I went right from Who's Number One to Super 32 into the season, and then I don't think I performed my best in the freestyle season. So getting this, not competing at Super 32 and just focusing on training, I think will benefit me in the long run.
And just talk about the year coming up, Sammy. Obviously last year was a great season. How do you build on that and, look for another individual title and team title as well, I'm sure. Just talk about, what's coming up for you this season and what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, we had a good season last year, but that's last year, so nobody it's behind us. As a team, we're looking to go and do the same thing. Go and win a team state title. Me, I'm looking to go get another state title and then just keep getting better, keep improving. I got a lot of room to improve. Guys I got to go get after and beat, So with the season, my last year with Coach Kroll, I just want to take in all the knowledge I can from him and be the best wrestler I can be when I leave that program.
And you mentioned Coach Kroll and really, can you talk about your relationship with him? And he's got to be one of the best coaches ever. And I don't care if it's wrestling or any sport. Just the way he conducts himself on and off the mat. And can you talk a little bit about your relationship with him?
Yeah, Coach Kroll is just you can't find. It's really hard to find someone better to look up to than Coach Kroll, and he's been someone in my life that's helped me a lot, not only in wrestling, but he's just a great guy all around. And in the wrestling aspect of it, the system that he has for us, I think is just unmatchable. I think he has it almost down to a science that you just can't go in that room and not get better. And being able to peak at the right time, not for Ironman or Beast of the East, but at the end of the season, is one thing that he just does phenomenal. And I give him a lot of credit.
And Sammy, I think that's great, and I know he's been a big influence on you and a lot of wrestlers, whether they're Division I athletes or not Division I athletes. I know he's had an impact on a lot of wrestlers, so I think that's pretty awesome to hear you talk about him. And you'd mentioned peaking at the right time. And you also talked about freestyle. You fell short this last summer of making the world team. Did that give you a little bit extra motivation to really focus on? Ohio State's obviously the Ohio RTC is somewhere that you're obviously going to get better at, having guys like Logan Stieber there. But is freestyle definitely something where you want to continue to improve on and really make a mark on the national level?
Yeah, definitely. I fell short these last 2 years at the World Team Trials. And this year, I really just think I underperformed at Fargo and at the World Team Trials. But I definitely have some room for improvement in folk style, but especially in freestyle. I think I can turn those matches around and get after it this year.
Well, you did turn around a pretty big match, though.
Yeah.
Anthony Arlo. That was a good one. And how cool was that? I know we talked to you right after, but how cool was that just to get that win, the redemption, just in front of so many friends and family there, especially after last year. I saw your dad there. He had the biggest smile from ear to ear after you got that win. What talk about that experience wrestling and who's number one?
It's a great experience. I lost last year and I got beat up, and that was a good lesson I needed to learn in my match preparation. That match, I think I might have turned a little corner in my mindset, the way I approach a match, the way I approach a tournament. That definitely helped me in the long run. So the experience is just awesome. And then come back this year and get after it and get a fall in front of the home crowd. That's sweet.
And you had your future teammate Gavin Hoffman get a win. That had to be cool to see. And Gavin, are you going to give him any advice to how to come home with a Super 32 belt? Because he's traveling down to Greensboro and he needs to get his belt too.
Yeah, I'll shoot him some pointers, whatever I can. But he's a tough wrestler, and he's going to go out. He's going to do his thing, and I think he gets a belt.
Yeah, I sure hope he does, and even Trent Hidley too. I think he's those are you three are really sort of the face of wrestling right now in Pennsylvania, and I think that's pretty cool that you were all able to compete at who's number one together. That had to be a pretty cool experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I was helping the wrestling room. I was the last match, so I was just relaxing up there a little bit, and I closed my eyes for a few seconds, and 10 minutes later, a bunch of Lehigh Valley kids come up, and there's like 6 of them, wish me luck, and they're like, Hidley just pinned him. I was like, Hidley pinned him. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to step up. So that was pretty sweet. They're like, yeah, Hidley pinned him in overtime. So I was all fired up.
So that's why you got done early. That's why you got the pin early on. You're like, hey, I got to top Trent.
I got to one-up him.
Got to one-up him. Your Fargo roommate. You got to one-up him.
Yeah.
Well, good. It's just great to hear that, and you've been so much fun to watch throughout the years, and we couldn't be more proud and happy for you to be going to Ohio State and watch you, compete there in Ohio State and finish out your senior season in the way you want to. So, again, congratulations, Sammy.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you. We'll be seeing you soon, so rest up and enjoy this little bit of break and get yourself ready for the season.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on.
All right, thanks
Sammy.
See you guys.
See ya. Once again, thank you very much to Sammy Sasso for taking the time out and joining us, and I hope he has a well-deserved break here after winning at Who's Number One and getting that weight off his shoulder, committing to Ohio State. So really wish him the best of luck moving forward. As we mentioned, Eric, it's never too early to look ahead. So I recently came out with the class of 2019 top 150. So these are wrestlers that have only had 2 years under the belts, but they're already doing some pretty good things.
Yeah, and this is kind of interesting to look at because, as you said, you like to look ahead and get kind of a jump on these things. So this is a nice way to look at it and see who the guys are that are already making a name for themselves, even with a couple years left to go.
And I love looking at this because, seeing where they ranked as freshmen, as top incoming freshmen, and where they, end up. And, obviously with 2 more years of high school left, there's still going to be a lot of wrestlers that are still making a name for themselves. But we look at the class of 2019. So these are our current juniors now in high school. Leading that list is Julian Klebo, without a doubt the top wrestler in the state of the class of 2019. Julian's a 2-time state champion from Northampton. Only had 1 loss in the season last year. He's 80-3 in his career. He was a top incoming freshman 2 years ago, and he's already committed. He gave a verbal to Arizona State basically right after his freshman year. So Arizona State. Guy like Zeke Jones, that's a huge pickup.
It is, and as you said, he's the clear number 1. But I tell you, number 2 is shooting up the charts pretty quickly with his summer performance.
Yeah, Carter Starocki, a Fargo cadet Fargo champion, a guy who was a state runner-up to Cam Coy. Has really his stock is gone up tremendously. He was a big name coming out of JOs too. I mean, he was number 4 on our top incoming freshman list. Carter was, and multiple time PJW state champion. And he's only gotten better. And I mean, I know we were just, it was a Carter Starocki show out in Fargo. We just could not get enough of watching him wrestle. And I'm just continuing to be impressed by him.
Yeah, and as you said, he really he was good going in, no doubt about that. But I think he really did open a lot of eyes nationally with his performance in Fargo.
And a guy at number 3, Ryan Vulock from Pope John Paul. Now, this is a guy who people are going to say, well, he didn't wrestle last year. Well, yeah, he was ineligible, but this is a guy we've talked about on the podcast before. He's competed in a variety of national tournaments, including the Super 32 and Flow Nationals, and he's done well at all of them. In fact, he earned medals at both. So Ryan Vulock is a guy who he was a state medalist as a freshman, and he finished 8th, same as Carter Starocki. They both finished 8th their freshman year. But I think Ryan Vulock is going to come back strong his junior season, and I think he's going to do very well for himself. So I don't think that is too crazy to think that Ryan is number 3. In fact, in our top incoming freshman list 2 years ago, he was the number 3rd ranked freshman. So, I think he's definitely proven that with what he's accomplished.
I got to admit, this one did surprise me a little bit. That and nothing against Ryan, but that he doesn't have that year last year, didn't get to show what he could do, and then to have Edmund Ruth from Susquehanna Township at number 4, who did win a state title last year. So I understand your logic, what he was able to do in some of the other tournaments like Super 32, but that one is one that kind of opened my eyes when I looked at that. And I said, wow, we got a state champ that was an 8th place finisher the year before, behind a guy who missed all of last season and was an 8th place finisher the year before.
Yeah, and that's no disrespect to Edmund whatsoever. But I think Ryan's upside is, the way he was been competing on the national level, I think it was really stands. I think that goes a long way, I think, with where he falls, and that's, again, Edmund was 40-0 last year and won a state title. So yeah, he's pretty darn good too. I think those two are neck and neck, and I think those top 4 are definitely you can, when you look at Julian and Carter and then Ryan and Edmund, I think all 4 of them are just significantly probably
on a different tier than the next group.
I would say, yeah, I could agree with that. But I mean, now you're making me feel like Edmund's going to come beat me up now.
Basically, that's my goal of this podcast, is to get you beat up, Jeff.
I mean, that's not very nice, Eric. So
No, but it's fun.
yeah, well, maybe for you, but it's.
I'm sure for the listeners too. Come on.
All right. It wouldn't be the first time, whatever. So when we look at it, yeah, Edmund Ruth comes in at number 4. And he's been underrated since day one in my book, because he was on the honorable mention in the top incoming freshman report. So, and he finished as a state medalist his freshman year. So, no, Edmund's a guy, and he's already accomplished more than his older brother Ed did at this time in his career. So think about that. I mean, his brother became a 3-time national champion. So where's Ed going to go, or where's Edmund going to go? I think it's pretty much sky's the limit.
Yeah, and as you said, he's kind of grown by leaps and bounds already. And I don't know, to ask him to continue to have that kind of growth is pretty difficult. But he's already at such a high level that if he just continues to grow and improve, that he's going to be one of the top recruits in the nation.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see Edmund down in Super 32 and seeing how he does compete against those top wrestlers in the nation. So, he'll have a chance to prove me wrong for sure, and maybe move up in those rankings. Number 5, Ryan Anderson from Becca. Now he was not on our top incoming freshman because he's from New Jersey. So I didn't want to really, I didn't want to say a guy coming in from New Jersey. It was the top Pennsylvania freshman. So that's why he was on the list. But Ryan Anderson spent the last 2 years at Becca. He was 20-5 his freshman year. And if you remember, he missed weight in postseason, so he couldn't compete in the postseason. And last year, he finished 3rd at that 126-pound weight class that only featured Austin DeSanto and Spencer Lee. That's no big deal.
Yeah, not bad guys to be behind there.
And Ryan, he recently won the Journeyman Classic, which is a huge accomplishment in its own right. And I think Ryan is one of those guys that is going to do very well in the next level. I think he's built for college, the way he competes. So I'm looking forward to see, what he can do in that next level. But he's a guy who's going to challenge people for a state championship. So, Ryan, wherever he ends up on the weight scale, I think he's going to do well.
Yeah, and then number 6 is a guy who was kind of flying under the radar early on in his career as well, in Dominic Fundy from Bethlehem Center.
Yeah, state runner-up last year. He was a state qualifier his freshman year, and another guy that was overlooked by yours truly in the top incoming freshman. And that's why I love the top incoming freshman report, because these guys that just come out of, I'm not saying they come out of nowhere, but guys that just transfer, they transition into high school and they do very well for themselves. But Dom Fundy, yeah, he comes in at number 6. He's a guy who is really looking to make a name for himself on a national level. Number 7, you got Mike Madeira from Blair. He's a 2-time national prep medalist. He was 3rd last year, 5th as a freshman. He's a guy who's from Nazareth. Could you imagine if Mike Madeira wrestled for Nazareth? I mean, the amount they would have easily, I think, won states last year, team states. Maybe not easily, but talk about the firepower there if Mike Madeira would have went to Nazareth.
Yeah, they already were pretty incredible as it was, and as you said, to have a guy like that potentially there. But he's at Blair, and obviously, that they feel like that's the best fit for him. Anytime you can be a part of that lineup, that's a pretty special thing as well.
Yeah, I've heard Blair's pretty good. I've never really seen any of the wrestlers, but yeah, I've heard they're pretty good. A guy that you love is Jared McGill from Chestnut Ridge, a 2-time state medalist who literally ate a human being to go from 132 to 180, whatever he is. He's huge.
I think you mean figuratively. I don't think he literally did. That would be illegal.
It would be, and I would have to arrest him, even though it's outside my jurisdiction. No, Jared McGill, a guy who just skyrocketed in weight. But I remember last year talking about this, is we were concerned of, how was he going to do up in such a weight, and he did really well. So
yeah, absolutely.
That as
4th in the state.
If I'm a college coach and I'm looking at that, I'm very impressed, because it's one thing that, you look at that wrestler who's able to compete down at that lower weight and then transition up to those bigger weights and still compete at a high level, that's something that is a really good quality. And Jared's a guy who already gave a commitment, and he's going to be going to Army.
He is. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago about it when he made the announcement. He's very excited about it. Loves the idea of being in the military after college and having a great career ahead of him, and just feels like it's a fantastic fit for him.
Yeah, well, he's one of two wrestlers on this list. We said that I've already given verbals at this point. You're only a sophomore, so only the verbal. But Julian Klebov, like we said, Arizona State, and Jared McGill, Army. And those two are the only ones that have given verbals. Number 9, Jojo Aragona from Pope John Paul in New Jersey. This is a guy who's from the Delaware Valley area of Pennsylvania, Milford, and he's a 2-time New Jersey state runner-up. He lost to Pat Glory last year, so that's a pretty good wrestler there.
Yeah, nothing to be ashamed of there.
And he's actually a Super 32 finalist. Going into his freshman year, or he was in his freshman season, and he finished second at the Super 32. He's a guy who's been one of the top guys in the state of Pennsylvania throughout his youth career. And I wish he would be here in Pennsylvania, but anytime he wrestles anywhere, he wrestles for Team PA. He's always, representing the Keystone State. So we're going to hold on to him. We're going to claim him. Moving up to number 10, Gabe Miller from Peckwood Valley. He was third in the state last year in his second trip to Hershey, a guy who I thought really improved from his freshman to sophomore season. He was a guy who we saw at Fargo really turned some heads, defeating some really highly ranked wrestlers. And I remember Flo talking about Gabe Miller, how he had a great Fargo tournament and really raised his stock up. So it'd be curious to see if Gabe can continue that stride, and I think he will.
Yeah, 44-1 last year, pretty impressive, finishing third in the state. And, if he can continue to build on that, he'll certainly solidify his spot there in the upper echelon.
I agree with you totally there, Eric. So if you want to go on and take a look at those, that we only went through the top 10 there, but we did rank the top 150 recruits of the class of 2019. So if you are interested, which you should be, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably should be interested in looking at the future of wrestling here. But go on to PAPowerWrestling.com. Under recruiting, under grade rankings, click on class of 2019, and you'll find those top 150 right there to view at your leisure. So definitely looking forward to the future.
Yeah, some guys to know here. Obviously, some of them like Klebov are guys that are already really well known, but some of them are guys that you might kind of be on the fringe about. You can take a look here and see who are the guys that are really going to step forward this season and claim some spots on the podium in Hershey.
And Eric, we're definitely looking forward to the future, but some past results that happened over the weekend, the Lock Haven Fall Classic, a tournament that a lot of Pennsylvania wrestlers competed at, and several Pennsylvania wrestlers came away with very good finishes. And it all started at 108 with Kyle Waterman from Council Rock South. He's a sophomore. He's a guy who was behind Max Mendez last year for Council Rock South. Only won 8-4 in varsity competition, but he was able to come away with a championship title at 108 pounds.
Yeah, he's someone that I'm sure will be looking to get more mat time this season and get some more wins under his belt. Yeah,
for sure. I think being in the Council Rock program is definitely going to help expedite that process of him getting even better. 115 pounds, Liam Logue from Father Judge, who's a junior. He was a state qualifier last year. He was able to come away with the championship at 115 pounds. And 122 pounds, Wyatt Lutz from Montoursville, a senior. He was third in the state last year. He won the championship at 122 pounds.
Yeah, some as you said, some real quality competition here at some of the weights. As you get with fall tournaments, sometimes the lower and upper weights are a little bit thin, but as you start to get in the middle weights here, even at 122, the brackets get a little deeper. The talent pool is pretty deep, and Wyatt Lutz is obviously an example of that.
Yeah, he's a senior, and he got 2 falls an 8-1 decision, a 4-3 decision, and then a fall in the finals to win the championship at 122 pounds. So very good showing by Wyatt. 128 pounds, a guy we talked about who's committed to Lock Haven, and he decided to go up there a little early and compete at 128 pounds. That's Dalton Rawball from Spring Grove. He was state third in 2016. He's going to Lock Haven, and he was able to come away with the championship at 128 pounds.
Yeah, able to go up there, and that gym that I know very well, and I understand you also wrestled in the Fall Classic. So that Lock Haven gym, he's getting to know it pretty well, and already finding success there.
I always liked going up to Lock Haven and wrestling to Lock Haven. I enjoyed my time there.
Back in my day, it seemed like everything was at Lock Haven.
Yeah.
There were at least 1 or 2 trips a year there, no, without a doubt. The state freestyle was there, the Fall Classic. Then when I got into college, we always wrestled there early in the season. And so, yeah, it just seemed like I've probably spent a few days of my life in Lock Haven's gym.
Definitely a few. Moving up to 134 pounds, Cole Roan from Benton, who was a state runner-up last year. He's a senior, went 38-5 last year. He comes away with a championship at 134 pounds. So a good showing for Cole Roan. And, he's a guy that I think is definitely, going to make a name for himself in the next year.
Yeah, I mean, Benton always seems to churn out these guys, and he's a guy that I think is going to continue to take steps forward. Was able to get second last year, and I certainly think he's going to be in contention for a state title this year as well.
Moving up to 145 pounds, and Brandon Connor from Wilson out of District 3, he was able to grind his way to a championship title at 140 pounds. He gets a fall. His first opening match was a 6-4 overtime decision, over a fellow Pennsylvania wrestler, Alex Miskovich from Mount Pleasant. So he opens up the tournament with a tough match, and then gets a fall, then a 4-3 win, a 1-0 win, and then a 3-2 win in the finals over Dalton Woodrow from DuBois. So really good tournament for him mentally. I mean, to say, he grinded out a lot of big wins there. So Brandon Connor, who was a state qualifier last year, by the way, for Wilson. So definitely a good win for him.
Yeah, nothing coming too easy there. But those are the kinds of things that you can build on. He was 29-10 last year, so a solid season. But I'm sure a couple of those were matches like this that, close matches that he came out on the wrong end of. You turn a couple of those around, and a good season becomes a great one pretty quickly.
Moving up to 147 pounds, Jeremiah Oakes from Scranton, he was able to come away with the championship there. And Oakes is a guy who is regional 5th place, so he missed just barely missed a trip to Hershey, and he's a junior now this year. But he was able to come away with a victory at 147 pounds. Also grinded out some wins. He got a 1-0 win in the semis and a 3-2 win in the finals. So just another Pennsylvania wrestler grinding his way to a championship.
Yeah, and one of his workout partners, William Ivanetsky also from Scranton, was able to win it at 154.
Yeah, and he's a guy who really, I mean, a lot of people were surprised when he came away with a state 5th place medal last year. And, those Scranton boys are really good. I mean, I never look past a Scranton wrestler. They have a great program.
Yeah, and, 42-6 last year, as you said, 5th in the state, and really a lot to build on there and a lot to like from him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, those two obviously having workout partners are definitely making each other better, every day in those wrestling rooms. A guy that not a lot of people are probably familiar with at 162 pounds is Gable Krebs from Montoursville. And he finishes second at the Lock Haven Classic at 162 pounds.
Yeah, he's someone that I'll admit I don't know too much about. Wasn't even a regional qualifier last year, but won 20 matches. And, obviously he's getting out there in the fall and putting in work. So, this is a guy to kind of keep an eye on this year and see if he can keep stepping up and go from, 20 wins to 30 or more this season.
Yeah, and he's a junior this season, and again, like Gable Krebs he would be a perfect choice to have a recruiting profile in Pennsylvania PA Power Wrestling. I think, having that, if you didn't have the best year that you wanted to, even you went 20-13, that's still a good season, competing in District 4 for sure. But definitely a place to highlight some of those things that you've been able to do. At 172 pounds, speaking of, Kyle Hammett from Waynesburg Central, he's got a recruiting profile on PA Power Wrestling. And, he's a two-time state qualifier, and he came away with the championship at 172 pounds. Kyle wrestles in every tournament there is, so he's always competing.
Yeah, and those are the guys that get better and continue to improve. And I think we're going to see that out of Kyle. Pretty solid season last year. I'm sure he's not satisfied with it. Didn't come away with a state medal, but certainly a guy that I would think would be one of the favorites this year to get one.
Yeah, and in the finals, he beat Pottsville wrestler Cole Painter, who is in his own right a solid wrestler. And, Kyle is like you said, I think he'll be able to get over that hump this year and get a state medal that, I know he's probably looking forward to very much. You look at 197 pounds, Keegan McCord from Manheim Central, formerly of Donegal. He's a junior now this year. He came away with the championship title there. I think is, as you said, it thins out up top there, but Keegan McCord's a guy who's been competing in a ton of tournaments off season wise. And I think it's going to show for sure in his junior season. Yeah,
I think that, these are the guys that we talk about it all the time. The work that you do in the off season begins to pay those dividends in the season, and I think you're going to see that from a guy like Keegan McCord, that you can take that step from 25-12 last year to a 30 or 35 wins this season. If things go well.
And speaking of Manheim Central, I don't know if you saw it, Billy Chamberlain was named their head coach.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, Billy Chamberlain, former state champion out of Cumberland Valley. He beat a good friend of mine, Walter Peppelman, in the state finals. They had some battles back and forth, but Billy has been an assistant coach there. And when Troy Sutherland stepped away after this last season, Billy recently was named the head coach there. So congratulations to him. A guy, Keegan McCord will be able to learn from there big time. And you look at 222 pounds, Zach Charlesworth from Mount Pleasant. He's a senior. He was a regional qualifier there, and he comes away with the championship at 222 pounds.
Yeah, he's a guy that it seems like he's been around forever. He's been a starter since he was a freshman at Mount Pleasant, and I'm not sure if it was probably his brother that was also a starter there. So there's been a Charlesworth starting from Mount Pleasant for seems like about a decade now. But he was 19-16 last year, regional qualifier, and another guy that is looking to make some gains in the offseason and get better as he goes into his senior season.
Yeah, and I love seeing wrestlers like that competing in the Lock Haven Fall Classic and showing, the work that they're putting into it. And, it wasn't too long ago I can remember going up to Lock Haven to compete in the Fall Classic. And, I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but it was at least I felt good to get out there and compete. And I'm sure a lot of these wrestlers are shaking off the rust. A lot of them have been working very hard in the off season. So it's really good to see so many Pennsylvania wrestlers doing well. And there was several states represented here. I mean, there was some high quality wrestlers here at the Lock Haven Classic, and it's not necessarily the Super 32, but it's still a really good tournament.
It is, and as you said, you get some New Jersey guys, you get some New York guys, so it's a good test. And anytime you can get out against Pennsylvania wrestlers, it's a pretty good tournament.
Well, Eric, episode 31 is coming to a conclusion. We went over a whole lot of commitments coming in and some recent news and happenings. I really want to, again, thank Sammy Sasso for coming on and joining us on the PA Power podcast. Really liked his insight into, what it was like picking Ohio State, and really looking forward to seeing his senior season.
Yeah, a lot of good things to come from him. Appreciate him stopping by, and pretty excited about this episode. I think people are going to enjoy it. Getting to hear about the top 150 juniors out there and some of the results, and just can't wait to get into the season here soon.
Yeah, and I want to say congratulations to all those wrestlers that we had mentioned that have recently given commitments to continue their wrestling careers and academic careers in college. And if any wrestler we missed, our apologies. Please get a hold of us and let us know where you're going. You can get us on Twitter at PA Power Wrestle. You can go on PAPowerWrestling.com. You can submit a college commitment on the homepage there. So really looking forward to what the future holds for Pennsylvania wrestling. Visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Go ahead and give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. If you go on iTunes, give us the podcast a review. Probably you should check out the college podcast with Tristan Warner and Mason Beckman. They do a decent job. I like them.
Yeah, they're very entertaining, very informative. Great addition to PA Power Wrestling. And
I'll leave you, the fans, with a tidbit here. Stay tuned for some news on PA Power Wrestling's expansion of some coverage, especially out in the western part of the state. So I won't give you too much information away, but stay tuned for an announcement coming out. So, and as always, thanks for stopping by.